Welcome to our next episode of the Breakthrough Autism podcast. I am so thrilled to be here today with Curtis Jordan, the first, as far as we know, publicly elected official in Canada who is on the spectrum. Curtis, welcome. So thrilled to have you here today.
Well, thank you, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be on your show today.
It's really remarkable the successes that you've achieved in your life.
Thank you.
I mentioned, being a publicly elected official. I don't care where you fall on the political spectrum, what stripes you wear. This is a win for your local community, for the province, for the country. Incredible. Not only that, but especially given in light where you've come from, raised by a single mom, overcame poverty, worked incredibly hard at life in terms of some of the challenges that autism has presented in your life, let alone we can go on, and we will,
Hmm.
to share with our community all the incredible things that you've overcome within your journey. I'm so thrilled to have you here today.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
And let's start with, how it began when you were young, born to a single mom. How did that journey get started?
Well, thank you. I was born in September of 1993 in downtown Ottawa, Ontario, our beautiful nation's capital, to a young, low to moderate income single mom. My father was not in the picture. No real family support in the picture. So, they say it takes a village to raise a child, and my mom was my village. And as a young person, I really, really, really struggled. And as I entered the school system, that struggle got a lot worse. Communication related barriers, meltdowns, meltdowns, meltdowns.
Yeah.
And so for my mother, already in the trap of poverty, and then a school system that just could not accommodate me. So her ability to move forward in her career was seriously, seriously hampered, in addition to a lot of health related issues that she was prevailing through herself. So as I got older, my mother worked so tirelessly to advocate for the resources that I need. And like, that was like climbing up Mount Kilimanjaro, so to speak. She really, really, really tried hard, but our system, even back then, the resources just really weren't there. My mother was still successful enough that I was able to get the resources to be able to overcome some of the communication challenges, some of the occupational therapy related challenges, and I was able to actually start my journey of moving towards overcoming a lot of the challenges that I was blessed with. And I say blessed with because I feel really fortunate to have had that lived experience. And I really, really, really value the fact that I'm an elected official who has gone through so many of these challenges. And as I got a little bit older, it was like hitting from the frying pan into the fire, as especially as I entered middle school and high school. Like, I did not have the skills. There were also a lot of learning disabilities that I lived with as well. My math was at a grade 4 level by the time I was in the midst of high school. It's interesting because I've been doing accounting for many years now. I very, very, and I can budget. Oh my God, if you knew how cheap I was and how I can budget, it's a bloody miracle. Because if any educators who worked with me back in those days, I think they were terrified of me even with a calculator, for heaven's sake. So as I grew older, I was really, really lucky. I had two things going for me: really loud voice and a strong, very strong hope and faith. And those two things have also gotten me in trouble quite a bit too.
Not at all. I think,
But
and it started with your mom, really. I
a
mean, that was,
wonderful, wonderful,
yeah,
loving mother.
yeah, amazing. And just to give people perspective, 1993, right, in the 90s, there wasn't much known about autism. The diagnostic rates were much less
Significantly lower.
prevalent than, yeah, much lower than they are now. And so, and we can talk about, theories about why, but the reality is that's what it was. One in every, I don't even know, to give or take, one in every 5,000 or so.
Mhm.
And so here is a young single mom raising a son who has some challenges, and she's navigating this system in order to A, get a diagnosis, and then B, get the appropriate resources that you need, is really a remarkable feat. Uh, because back then, I mean, even the word autism was not regularly heard.
No,
Amazing,
I feel
amazing.
so, so fortunate. And so as I got a little bit older, my mother, her health started seriously deteriorating. And I almost even feel a little bit of guilt towards that because I mean, I know the sleepless nights I put her through. I know my meltdowns probably like I like my heart absolutely goes out to her for everything she had to deal with me when I was younger, and her health ability started to deteriorate, and that's when I really had to grow up quickly. And while I was really growing up quickly, I was also really struggling in school. And so I started my career relatively young because I was not able to get through our school system. So I'm one of the only publicly elected officials in the province who has a very unique educational path. And it's
Mhm.
funny, as a trustee, I'm the one that's handing out high school diplomas to students who have graduated.
Mm.
And it's really interesting because I never had the opportunity to touch my own.
I was, that's just what a full circle moment there.
Huge
Yeah,
full circle
yeah.
moment. The fact that like my right to education in this province was basically revoked because of the needs that I had that were not able to be accommodated in our system. And to have been elected to serve
Mhm.
in the role that I'm serving in and to be able to have the impact province wide that I am about to embark on
Mm.
is what a full circle moment.
Amazing.
What a privilege.
Yeah, amazing privilege.
Thank you.
So those, those experiences when you were younger, leading up to even just, middle school, high school,
Mm,
what did you take from that? You said you feel blessed. What
I
do you
do.
mean by that? What did you take from those experiences to where you are now?
I see in so many folks on the spectrum that are at various levels of functionality. I see a
Mm,
lot of myself in folks who are living with autism because of my lived experience of being that young person really, really struggling in a system that is not meant for them, in a system that really, really, really need to build a little bit better. And, seeing that, I look at it as a blessing that I have had the opportunity to have that lived experience and that I've
mhm.
prevailed through so many of these obstacles. And I'm now in a position that I am able to play a huge role of influence in various policy. And again, hopefully on a very province-wide scale, which I
Yeah.
feel. And again, like my politics have nothing to do with the work that I've been doing the past 13 years. I mean, and like you said at the beginning of this program, I mean, the really nice thing about the autism advocacy community, and I can speak to this from firsthand experience, we have some of the most caring people that you could imagine, and the diversity on the spectrum, I think, is very similar to the diversity of the politics of stakeholders within this group. I know parents who are very, very, very conservative who have shared their absolute excitement with the fact that I've been elected.
Hmm.
I've also connected with parents and stakeholders who are very, very, very far to the left, and many in between, and many who are quite frankly apolitical, who
Yeah.
have been just so excited that someone with that lived experience has been elected and has the opportunity to God willing make some real change within our community.
Remarkable.
Thank you.
This is, and so, we have, I think there's been a lot of good work done in terms of getting individuals on the spectrum supports that they need, intervention, but we got a lot more work to do. And we need to do it as a community. This is the only way. What your mom did takes a village. It was one person then, thankfully. We're working on more now. Thank
God.
goodness, right? And so here you are now entering into mi- middle school, high school, and
Mhm.
that experience. you know,
Traumatic.
so I
Traumatic.
was gonna say, yeah, I've heard from many, individuals on the spectrum to say how challenging those years
Mhm.
can be, given that, this is a key time to form friendships, build relationships,
Mhm.
and not to mention all the academic stuff that comes along too. And I do want to share with people that are watching that,
Mhm.
as you mentioned, it is a huge spectrum, and what we try to showcase here with our podcast is that spectrum. And there are
Mhm.
certainly individuals who are not able to vocally share their
Mhm.
stories, that may be more focused on, let's say, activities of daily living in terms of their learning experience through school, versus another child that may be academics, or I mean, we can go on and on socially, and
Absolutely.
there's crossover with all of that too.
There's
And
so much
so
intersectionality,
there's
which, yeah.
it's a complex field when it
Mhm.
comes to education,
Totally.
and also the social experience for every individual on the spectrum.
Mhm.
But for your experience right now, going into that, here's a time that you're looking to form
Mhm.
relationships, friendships, learn. Tell us a little bit about that. What did that look like for you?
Awkward is an understatement.
Yeah.
Awkward is a huge understatement. I mean, I was very, very, very awkward going into the high school system, a huge high school that I went to. Um, it it was very, very difficult to form those connections. It was really, really, really difficult. And as I got a little bit older, you know, I started to be able to form those connections, and I felt really, really, really lucky. And by the time I was about 14 and a half, I had a best friend. And like 14 years, very big chunk in a lot of people's lives. I never really had friends before that. And my best friend was also on the spectrum as well. Um, a lot of similarities, a lot of similarities. And on my 16th birthday, he committed suicide. And that was the absolute positive saddest moment of my life. I mean, it's been over 5,000 days since then. I'm 29 years old now and I'm still not over it. Um, and it's really, like, it's one of those things. I'm sorry, I'm tearing up a little bit, and this can go on camera. But it literally one of the most difficult things that I ever had to deal with. And the reason he committed suicide was because of the lack of support that he had in our education system. Like, so similar to what I was going through. And like, again, he was on the spectrum as well, really, really, really struggling. And so as I got older, I knew that I needed to do a lot of advocacy for our community, because one life lost is too many, and we know how high the suicide rates are for young people on the spectrum. And it's really interesting the fact that I've been elected to the office that I've been elected to, because I represent a huge swath of rural Eastern Ontario.
Hmm.
In Eastern Ontario, we have the highest suicide rates in the province, and we are among the jurisdictions with the highest number of autism IEPs in the province. So it really, 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 I feel really blessed to be representing the constituency that I'm representing, in the time that, in the current point in time, because like my huge goal is that we are going to get resources in place so that we don't lose more lives.
Hmm.
And we have lost so many. I mean, the number I used to facilitate, an autism adult support group, and like the number, like we would have to have bereavement counselors come in when someone would commit suicide. Like that is the number of individuals who committed suicide who are on the spectrum. That is like we should not be proud of that. We need to change that. And when it's horrific that we have so many young people who are going without service. We have so many adults who are on this insanely long supportive housing wait lists, and then we also have so many young people and adults as well who are committing suicide. It breaks my heart to no end, and it's something that God help me, I'm going to be able to play a role in changing.
First of all, I'm terrible traumatic experience. I'm
Thank
so
you.
sorry for that. Especially somebody so close to you to have that impact you is just, there's no words to describe. And so, as you mentioned, completely unnecessary. I think people really need to hear in the community the one of the many complexities underlying autism can be challenges with mental health.
Absolutely.
As a psychologist myself, it's close to my heart that we really need to do a better job supporting those on the spectrum. Navigating the social world can be really tough.
Impossible at
Impossible.
times.
You're in high school. It's hard for any high school. Gosh, I don't want to go back to high school myself.
I don't blame you.
It was a tough, awkward time, let alone to be navigating through how do I form relationships? How do I get through a day to day? Thank goodness you guys had each other for the time that you did as friends. That was, I'm sure, a blessing for both of you. And to get to that point, to form that relationship was an amazing, amazing, success in itself. And then to take from that for your journey, where do you go from there in terms of, what happened, this terrible tragedy, and what do you do with it?
Absolutely. I had a really strong work ethic. I had a very strong faith in God, and I had a very loud voice.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
those are my two and three best things I had going for me.
Amazing.
And I started my career relatively young, literally doing whatever I could, working as many jobs as I could, because like my mother's health at this point in time, while I'm going through all this, my mother's health had deteriorated so badly. We were having huge difficulty affording those basic needs of life. So as I got a little bit older, I ended up moved to Kingston for a little while, moved to Toronto a little while for work related reasons,
Mhm.
and I was able to make quite decent money, saved up enough that for my mother, as her health had gotten really, really bad, I was able to purchase a condominium in kind of a bad part of Ottawa, but I was able to purchase a condominium for my mother, and get a mortgage and all of that when I was 24 years old. Now, the place I paid next to nothing. Like it was,
Curtis, don't downplay this. Any 24-year-old to purchase anything, let alone for their parent, this is an incredible success story, incredible
you're very
inspiration.
kind.
It's just unbelievable to go from poverty, homelessness, what you're going through as you're with your family. You're working when you're young in high school, trying to navigate the system,
Mhm.
getting through that, and then to purchase that condo.
It
I
was
don't
such a
care where it
blessing.
is. I don't care. Anywhere in Canada and anywhere really in the world, to be able to do that and give that to your mom is just
It was a real privilege. So as the years went by, like this is when I was 24.
amazing.
It was, and then I went and I renovated it with my own two hands. And again, like I'm openly
Yeah.
gay. A lot of openly gay guys are not the most handy. I don't want to stereotype
Yeah.
here, but are not the most handy individuals. And I had the opportunity to do quite a bit of renovating,
Amazing.
and then like around that time, I was still living in Toronto. I was living in a little basement apartment with no windows, and I had just, so I felt really, really blessed to have had the opportunity to have done that for my mother. And then, fast forward just less than 3 years, and I found my absolute dream home in rural Eastern Ontario. And my friends, especially my friends in Toronto, God
Mhm.
bless them, as I developed such a wonderful network of great people here in the GTA. And They thought I was nuts. They thought I'd finally lost it. Openly gay guy moving to rural Eastern Ontario. One friend, she's like, they're gonna stave you out of there with the pitchfork. And of course, all
Yeah.
these stereotypes
Yeah.
about rural areas. And I bought this place, I renovated it. It was unlivable. It
Yeah.
like and so I developed a very strong sense of interior decor. I budgeted 35,000 to renovate it, which people are like, that place is a dump. You're gonna spend so much more. I haven't quite spent 10,000 yet.
Wow.
And so I feel so incredibly blessed to have been able to get my place looking the way it is. And so then as time went on,
Hmm.
I was able to really develop strong connections in the region that I live in, and
Hmm.
I was a Grand Marshal of Diversity Cornwall Pride this year, and
Amazing.
so like the people where I've been elected to, they're kind, they're inclusive, they're accepting. I've knocked at hundreds and hundreds of doors in my riding. Um, and you know what? It's, the number of autism parents that I've connected with, the number of, like, I actually had one woman who had lost her son to suicide only a few months before the campaign.
Hmm.
And I literally spent 2 hours sitting in her front room with her as she was crying her eyes out. And being able to share that lived experience, being
Yeah.
able to connect with individuals who've also really, really, really struggled. I mean, for this woman, she finally had hope in a system that had failed her son and offered her no support during that bereavement.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so I felt so incredibly honored, and I feel incredibly honored to have the role that I have. And I'm looking so forward to, like, there's so much change. There's so much change that has happened over the many years, and
Yeah.
you've been a huge part of that change, and God
Thank you.
bless you for that. There's a lot of change, and we need to all work together. And autism parents are such a great resource
Yeah.
because, and individuals on the spectrum, we need to be working together hand in hand
Yeah.
towards a better future for our next generation of leaders on the spectrum.
Absolutely. And establishing those communities, just like you're
Yeah.
doing, is an important key to that. So you have your mom with a condo, which is incredible that you helped get her. You have your own home. That pride of home ownership is remarkable.
Thank you.
Coming from where you came from is just even more remarkable
Thank
that
you.
all that happened. Plus, you have become a strong advocate within the autism community, openly gay, publicly elected official, supporting your community as well in that respect, and just making all these connections. I mean, it's just human connection to me at the end of the day, right?
Definitely.
And looking to see how we can, support each other best, lift all of us up, right? So, in terms of your learnings, tell me a little bit about the poverty piece, some of the things that you've gone through, some of the ways that you've supported your community, because I know you've done work in this area, especially when it comes to supporting people who may be in danger of being evicted, individuals on the spectrum who may be in shelters. Particularly from the autism lens.
Yes.
This is a really important thing for people to hear, that I don't think most people
Not
even
everyone
begin
realizes
to
this.
realize that this is a serious issue that can impact the autism community.
Well, it's interesting because we talked about intersectionality of individuals who are on the spectrum,
Hmm.
but the intersections between poverty and
Hmm.
autism, there is a huge economic impact, especially for autism moms. Autism moms,
Yeah.
and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but so many autism moms, um, you know, for whatever reasons, often the dad or the other spouse
Yeah.
leaves. I have to be very, very politically correct here,
Yeah.
but often the parent too
Yeah.
leaves, and a lot of these autism moms all on their own in an economy that is very, very difficult to afford services for your child, let alone being a single parent and affording the basic things like housing, and so you get a lot of, so our shelters right now in the province of Ontario full of families who have kids on the spectrum. I'm not saying all families in the
Yes,
shelter system are, but we have so many families in our shelter systems that are on the spectrum. Families who are precariously housed, families who are getting evicted because a child with autism is screaming, coloring on walls, you name it. I've seen it all in the advocacy that I've done, the anti poverty advocacy that I've done. The direct support that I provided to individuals and families at risk of homelessness. And like, I've literally seen it all. And then another huge catchment is individuals with autism spectrum disorders as adults
Mm-hmm.
who find themselves homeless. And
Mm-hmm.
that is another huge, huge catchment that is unrecognized, goes unsupported, completely and utterly falls through the cracks. And that is something that, like, we desperately need to change. And especially with the economy the way it's going in this province, housing is unattainable to anyone on social assistance, ODSP, or who is not making an upper middle class
Yeah.
salary. And I don't mean just buying a home, even renting a home, even renting a room in this province. And this is not just a Toronto issue. This is not a GTA issue. This has spiraled to a province-wide concern. And folks on the spectrum, and I'm sure there's parents who are watching this who have adult children. And I know so many parents who have adult children, and their big fear is, what happens when I pass
Mm-hmm.
away? And I've seen in many cases when parents do pass away, their children in many cases I've seen become homeless, or become very precariously housed. And like, that is something we desperately need to change. And my hope is that I'm not going to be the only person in the province with autism elected. We got to get a few more. We also got to get a few really great autism parents
Mm-hmm.
elected. And I'm not just saying within one party, frankly, I'm saying within all
Yeah,
three.
absolutely.
And within publicly elected officials, we need to see more publicly elected officials on the spectrum. In the LGBT community, we've
Mm-hmm.
seen so many wonderful people get elected, over the past half century of progress. And
Yes.
like, I have people like me have had the right to be married for many years now
Yeah.
in this great country. There's been so many gains. And a lot of those gains came after we saw members of the LGBT community get elected, and parents of kids who are LGBT getting
Mm-hmm.
elected, and very strong allies. And so I think the same could be said for on the spectrum, getting autism moms, autism dads, autism grandmas, autism grandpas, and the like autism siblings and individuals on the spectrum.
Yeah.
When it becomes close to home, that's when you see a lot of things start to change. And because like, even in my role, if I have someone who's going to openly introduce a policy that is going to really hamper on the rights of folks on the spectrum, they're going to have to look me in the eye while doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting how when things get close to home, and when you have that person who, like, that is a huge part of their being, their lived
Mm-hmm.
experience, it's interesting how things change.
Amazing. This is a call
Thank
to
you.
action to everybody in our community, right? To get
Definitely, we need to get
involved,
more people
to have the
elected.
voice, and we can learn from other communities that have done an incredible job in terms of advocacy. And there's so many facets to this. The facet of the economic impact
It's
on
profound.
families is really, it is profound. It's widespread. There was a study a couple of years ago that came out of Alberta, actually, that
Mm,
looked at the economic impact of autism on the family. And it spoke to many of the things that you just talked about, including often, not always, but moms not being able to work, at least someone in the family, separation within the family, the impact of that. So it starts there. And then now you need to look for intervention for your child if that's what they need, appropriate supports in the school system. Coming from the ABA background,
hmm.
we know that it's an incredible treatment that can really change kids' lives.
It is.
But certainly it requires resources, it requires staff, it requires finances to be able to do so. And so this is something, certainly even from your own experiences,
Hmm.
right? Going from a life that was, very challenging financially growing up to then full circle again, right? Going it back into the community to help those that are on the spectrum. Tell me a little bit about those experiences. You've seen firsthand, some of the economic impact of autism, and how can we do better, Curtis? What do we need to do as a community, uh, given some of the experiences that you've had
Mm,
within your community?
absolutely. What we really, really need to do is be increasing supports for parents with kids on the spectrum,
Mm,
and especially for single moms, supports like things like couples counseling for couples who
mm,
have a child or children on the spectrum. That is like one of those things, and in my I have a lot of friends who are autism parents, a lot of
yeah,
autism moms, and I've done a lot of that because again, the access to the resources for things like couples counseling and whatnot, very, very difficult. So I've kind of found myself in that type of role for quite a bit, which I am totally unqualified to be doing that. But the need is so great that I've had a lot of people kind of come to me for that
yeah,
level of support because they literally have no one. So we need to be looking at mental health supports for a lot of these autism parents. We need to be looking at things. We need a child care strategy that puts kids on the spectrum first.
mm,
Because that is one of the huge, huge, huge barriers to, and let's face it, predominantly women with
yeah,
kiddos on the spectrum, who their career success is being hampered by a system that is failing their children and thus failing them.
right.
And we also need to, I truly believe this, there are always going to be situations where you have moms who have a child on the spectrum who are not going to be able to work because even just bringing their child to so many appointments,
Yes.
and especially we need to look at extending long-term CPP disability in EI as well as eligibility to programs like ODSP to these parents. And again, none of these programs pay very well. And that's completely
Right.
other, like I personally I've spent years advocating to, for instance, double rates of
Mm,
ODSP, raise wages, get better free childcare in this province. But these are some of the strategies that we need to support at the beginning.
yeah.
Because you know what, it's really tough to fix the problems that you fail at in the beginning.
Right.
And so those are, I mean, like there's so many other things we could be doing. That's just very much at the beginning. Obviously, we need to be covering ABA under Medicare. ABA also, we need to have ABA therapists in the schools. I know that's a
Oh,
controversial
that's a
issue.
dream. Yeah. For some
It's
of us, but yeah, for kids who it would be appropriate for, obviously. But
absolutely.
what I think what you're saying, basically, like bottom line is that we need to customize the supports for any given family. And it even goes down to like if moms can't get to work, right? There's this ripple effect, right? So what can we do to
Absolutely.
help, or dads, what can we do to help that, right? If they're worried, I mean, I've seen firsthand, for example, and this is not to say for lack of care and trying. I know everyone's doing the best they can under the circumstances they have, but where parents will get the call, "I need you to come pick up your kid," because it's just we can't manage, right? And so I don't know how you work if you don't know if you're going to get a call any given day asking you to come pick up your child from childcare, from school, or from wherever, right? On top of which, driving around, there's so many
Or
different,
taking transit because you're
taking
in such a
transit.
trap of poverty. And
So
those
yeah,
calls are basically the sound of the trap of poverty
right, yeah,
for so many, let's face it, mostly moms who have
yes,
kids on the spectrum. I
yeah,
mean, we talk about the wage gap, it's real.
yeah.
And this, I mean, it's adding insult to
It's
injury.
very hard, absolutely. So here, you had firsthand lived experience across so many of these challenges, and yet you worked your way out of it. You got through high school somehow, right?
I didn't
You
get through high
you didn't
school.
get through high school, so you got
No.
through the age. And what happened? Bring us back to that. So there was a fork in the road there,
There was a huge
right?
fork in the road. So
Yeah.
either either we took the education system to court to get
Yeah.
me the resources I
Yes.
needed,
Yeah.
or I basically start trying to develop some semblance of a career, of a working life.
Yeah.
We didn't have the resources to take anyone to court.
So you left school and you started working. That was your path there. What were you doing at that point?
So my first job, I was working as a receptionist. I also worked as a superintendent of apartment buildings, like doing very, very basic maintenance work. Literally doing anything I could to pay the bills
Yeah.
and build my life forward. And I mean, a lot of very menial, a lot of administrative jobs. And then as I got a little bit older, I started working in the
Hmm.
not-for-profit sector, and I really thought my lived experience would come in handy.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, very much towards the beginning of my career, I don't think anyone could have cared less about my lived experience, frankly, if I told I've worked at organizations that support people with disabilities, and it seemed that you know, having that lived experience really didn't come in handy. Frankly, it was baggage. And so as I moved up in my
That
career,
was the perception.
that was the perception. I mean, you know
Yeah.
what? I mean, quite frankly,
Or at least that's what you felt at the time. Yeah.
I mean, I even had individuals tell me, you know, you should never tell that to anyone in a work situation.
Wow.
And so, you know what? I took that advice. Not proud of it, but I took
Hmm.
that advice. I was privileged enough, and maybe it's because I look more gay than autistic. I and I was able to. No one, a lot of people wouldn't notice that I'm on the spectrum.
Hmm.
Hadn't seen me in a meltdown yet, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
They hadn't seen
Yeah.
me go to the dentist and need to be
Sure.
sedated.
Yeah.
They hadn't seen the sensory issues, or the sensitivity to smells. Oh my God. But
This is important for people to know,
oh,
right?
thank
Like that
you.
there are, just because you don't see it does not mean that there are not challenges for individuals like yourself that you've worked through really hard. Dentist, case in point,
Oh
that's a
my
huge
gosh.
one. I can't tell you how many families I've heard that they're not able to take, because I work with the kids,
Yes.
not able to take their children to the dentist. They need to be, so
Yes.
these are
And
serious
I've had
issues.
families asking me this as
Yeah.
well, and it's really, really difficult to. So I had a years long journey to find a dentist. Like it was very, very difficult journey. And I would call different dental clinics and I would be like, like I'm on the spectrum, I need to be sedated. It's a
Mhm.
sensory issue. And the number of times I would have the phone hung up on me.
Wow.
Hung up on me. And or we don't do that.
Yeah.
And just no ability for accommodation. I actually had to go and I had to say this is for my brother who is on the spectrum, and which I mean I was scratching my nose the whole time
Mm.
because I'm really not a good liar. So definitely don't fit the
Yeah.
stereotype for a politician, but I don't think I fit any of the
No,
stereotypes,
you don't.
quite frankly. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm wearing a suit, so I mean that's the closest I get, I guess. But I'm wearing a blazer,
Yeah.
and no tie, so
Oh,
that's another stereotype. And I'm wearing jeans, so another stereotype I'm breaking. But I remember like having to literally. That is what I had to do
yeah.
in order to get someone to listen enough.
Wow.
Self advocacy, we're still in a day and age, and I don't like the term self advocate because it sounds like I'm advocating all about me.
Yeah.
Like, none of the advocacy is about me. That's like the only
Yeah.
time when I'm calling a dentist's office to try and book an appointment. It's the closest I get to self advocacy. And it is like not, we're still struggling with that. We're individuals on the
Yeah.
spectrum. We struggle with that self advocacy because a lot of people there's that internal judgment. I'm not saying that's everyone. I
Yeah.
mean, and I'm sure the majority of folks listening to this program right now are definitely not within that faction of the
Yeah.
population who has maybe that little bit of prejudice. But I mean, it exists. It's there. It's
Yeah.
real.
Well, it's hard to get a dentist. So, case in point,
I was
right?
very, 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 very fortunate to
Yeah.
find that, and like other things too. Like I have sensory issues to like different smells.
Right.
Ironically, my worst one is BO. I have like this horrible sensory issue to
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And so, I mean, that's a great excuse not to go to
100%.
the gym.
Sure, yeah, that works.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
So, okay, so there's the reality is there are challenges that people don't see that you work through and
Mhm.
continue to work through, and
Definitely.
yet you were able to navigate the world of employment somehow. So now you're moving from hands-on handyman work, which served you well,
To
right, with your
management
to
work.
management work.
And so I
Yeah.
started in management when I was relatively young in my 20s. I was working at a company. I had some folks who believed in me,
Mhm.
promoted me up the chain a little bit. And then I moved on to management in a few other different organizations as the years have gone by. And I've always worked multiple jobs. So,
Mhm.
like I had my own business for a little while too.
Mhm.
And I feel really, really lucky for that because um, I never thought that I'd be able to do that.
Mhm.
It was not something that I thought was ever in the cards for me because
Mhm.
when I was younger, I was not nearly organized enough. Oh my gosh. And I feel really lucky because I think being on the spectrum has caused me to be a little bit more organized because I function really well in that perfect org. Like if you
Yeah.
saw my house, place for everything,
Yes.
everything is. I'm sure there's some people who know me personally who are watching this who are like,
Yeah, that's true. That's right.
yeah, yeah,
It works for that's how it works for you, though. That works for you.
in the immaculate
Yeah.
cleanliness. My sanctuary.
Yes.
I believe
Yeah.
in that importance of sanctuary. That's been actually one of the things that has really helped me
Mhm.
succeed. So I've been living on my own since I was in my late teens.
Wow.
And I function so well when I live on my own because of the fact that I don't have anyone messing up my
It's
stuff.
your place. Your
You know,
place of peace that you
it
can go
is that
to.
one area of
Yeah.
my life, I guess, that I have a little bit of control over, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. But I feel really, really
Yeah.
lucky for that, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So I talk to a lot of parents that
Mm,
ask about employment. There's a kids only stay kids for so long, and it's a really actually a relatively short period of time. And one of the hopes as we see children
mhm,
benefiting from treatment and learning key skills, and we want them all to live their best lives, whatever that might look like for them. There are some individuals that may not, based on skills they have, be able to get employment, but there's a good group of people that they really grow through intervention, education, and parents ask me, right? What's it going to take for my child to get a job? So you had a lot of jobs and you continue to, which is amazing. What can you share? What lessons did you learn from that employment experience? What can you share with the community in terms of what can we do to get there?
mhm. But what honestly, my advice to parents who are watching right
Mhm.
now is don't ever give up that hope.
Yeah.
There is a world of work out there. That doesn't mean 100% of the population has to be at work. However, there is a world of work out there and looking outside of the box.
Mm.
I know so many parents who are like, my child is going to go to university, and after university, they're going to have a really great job. And I know many people who
Yeah.
have gone to university and have built themselves fabulous careers, but also looking at what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses of an individual, also looking at where are this individual's special talents?
Yeah.
Where could this go? So, for instance, and I think there's a possibility I may have won the election thanks to this because I did a lot of door knocking. I love houses. Love,
Oh, there
love,
you
love
go.
houses. I love houses and I love trains. So, I mean, one of them is kind of stereotypical for
Yeah.
me being on the spectrum,
Yeah.
that I love houses. So, that's stereotypical for me being gay, I guess. And you know what? I think I won the election for this because every house that I door knocked at, I find something that I think is so gosh darn cool. And,
Amazing. Yeah.
I think I may have just won the election because the people were
You
very
connected.
flattered.
Yeah.
Were very flattered by
Yeah.
the fact that I had something nice to say about their home, but I really meant
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It was
I love
authentic.
houses.
Yeah.
And so, in my role now, and I work in the
Mhm.
not-for-profit housing sector,
Yes.
I love houses. I love houses. I love anything to do with housing. And that is one of the things that kind of attracted me to more of the property management realm, the real estate realm, the management of social housing assets, the management of government real
Mhm.
estate assets, all of that realm. I love houses. I love anything to do with houses.
Mhm.
I love construction. I know not very stereotypical, and but I mean, you know,
That
I'm
works.
breaking stereotypes a little
Yeah,
bit by little bit,
absolutely.
but you know, like that was one of the areas. So,
Yeah.
like for me, full disclosure, I wanted to be an architect. God, I'm so much happier than any architect that
Yeah.
I know in my career because I've spent the majority, 13 years of my career, the overwhelming majority of that has been helping people. And I've worked alongside many architects as well in a variety of different developments that I've been part of spearheading.
Mhm.
So I feel really, really lucky to, and like I used to design schools. I used to love designing schools, and I would do big floor plans on, you know, the old computer people. I think some of the older folks watching this,
Yeah.
and maybe this makes me sound old, but I remember computer paper when it had the little dot.
Yeah,
Okay,
of
so you
course.
remember
Yeah, and you
that
can rip
too?
those part off, that part off.
And you
Yeah.
could, it was
Yeah.
perfect for doing a really big, long floor
Sure.
plan.
Yeah.
And so I remember that because we used to, like in, you know, late 90s, early 2000s, we'd be able to often get that for free behind businesses that were,
Yeah.
that were getting rid of that for
Yeah.
recycling. And so I remember doing that, and it's kind of full circle because now, like, I'm going to be part of, the development of some new educational institutions
Wow.
in this province, which is really, really exciting. So it's interesting how that dream of mine of being an architect, I
Yes.
mean, you know what? I was told I wasn't smart enough.
Mm.
I was told I wasn't smart enough actually to do quite a few things. I was also told I wouldn't live independently either. It's interesting how I'm an elected official who owns multiple
It's
properties.
amazing. Yeah.
You know,
Amazing.
so, you know, never
Amazing.
give up that hope, but
Yeah.
really specifically to that employment, keep an open mind.
Yeah.
And I say this very, very clearly to folks on the spectrum. Your dream job is out there. Your calling is out there. And you're not going to find it quickly, though.
Right.
I
Yeah.
lived experience, living proof. It took a lot of patience, and you know, Italian heritage. I'm stubborn as a day is long. I
Me
have
too.
like zero. I have like zero
That's to do it on
patience.
hard-headed here, where I'm from.
Oh,
But yeah, yeah. Yes,
very
it's
hard
good.
headed as
Like
well.
it
No
serves you,
patience.
it can serve you well, right? In terms of
My
persistency. You're
my lack
persistent.
of patience makes me far too persistent for my own
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
It also makes me, I really don't give up on things,
Yeah.
which for better or for worse, I think in my life it's been a little bit of a positive.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to anyone who may have been adversely affected by that persistence,
Yeah.
but you know, I feel really lucky for that. That stubbornness, honestly, we need more stubborn
Yeah.
people in leadership roles.
Yeah. Well,
We
especially what
need,
you've heard, right? You heard so many times that it wasn't possible, and for you to
yeah.
push through that. Your point about employment is such an important point for parents or young individuals on the spectrum to hear is that there's a couple things
Mhm.
that I take from what you're saying, but one of them is we all have a passion, right? We all have a purpose in life,
We
whatever that
do.
might look like. It's all different for each of us. And for people to take the time to figure out what that is, right? For parents, expose your children to different opportunities,
Mhm.
figure out what they're really into. It's interesting because I hear this also from other parents and other individuals that I've chatted with who are on the spectrum is that sometimes that thing that you're super passionate about that you want to spend all your time making those plans or whatever you like to
Mhm.
do that can turn into something really great.
Mhm.
And then guess what, you get to go to work and you get to love what you do too, which I don't even know how many of us can really say that. I'm very blessed. I get to
You're in good
I get
company.
to do that all the time, but it's because you look and you take the time, and it takes time, as you said, to really figure out what is it that gets you excited in life and how
Mhm.
can you turn that into something that you can contribute to. And you did that
Well, thank
by
you.
virtue of your interests and then the persistence. It's like it's the combination of the two.
Yeah.
And also I really love what you said, and I think it's really important for families to hear this too when their kids are younger,
Mhm.
is that it might not look like what you think it should look like, right?
Exactly.
Be open to pursuing that
Mhm.
journey. And if it's something that your child loves, like any child, I would hope this for my kids, and they're not
Mhm.
on the spectrum, that they find something that they feel passionate about
Mhm.
and that they're able to grow that into something wonderful like you did. You
Definitely.
did that with housing. It's really
Well,
remarkable.
thank you.
You went from really not having housing, and really challenging
Like, I
circumstances
spent
to.
most of my childhood on the wait list for affordable housing.
This is
And
remarkable.
to play a leadership role in the
Mhm.
nonprofit housing sector,
Mhm.
it's a huge privilege because I think of myself on that as a young person who, I'm sure my young years probably would have been a lot easier if we had been able to get a subsidized housing unit when I was a
Yeah.
child because um, we wouldn't have had to move around so much. There would have been that stability a little bit more because like we had a lot of landlords rent-evict, and I mean that's before rent-evictions were as common as they are today. I mean
Yeah.
now all we hear about is people getting rent-evicted, but it's really really interesting that has become full circle as well.
Yeah.
So, but one of the things, another key piece of advice that I have for individuals who are kind of on that search for their calling, for that employment, it's okay to have a 9 to 5 that pays the bills, even if it's not a 9 to 5 that you really like, especially with the work at home economy that,
Mhm.
and I'm hoping it's still like during the pandemic, that was it's a real economic boost for a lot of individuals on the spectrum, as well as a lot of
Mhm.
parents on the spectrum who finally could have a work from home
Mhm.
job where there wasn't quite as much social. Um,
Good
there
point.
are a lot of
Yeah.
individuals, as well as a lot of parents who were actually able to multitask with some of the things at home a little bit
Yeah.
better. If they had to take 20 minutes to go and pick up their child from school because they were having a meltdown, that created a lot of success for a lot of individuals. And
Yeah.
I'm hoping that in some industries, and I think we're going to know a little bit better within the next 13 to
Mm.
18 months, what industries are going to more or less keep that as and keep the hybrid model
Yeah. As
going
an
as well
option.
as an option,
It might
or
help some people on the spectrum.
absolutely
Yeah.
positively, as well as
Yeah.
parents
And
of kids on
parents,
the spectrum
absolutely.
too,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's a model that has actually helped quite a few people, personally
Yeah.
that I know
Yeah.
within our community. But in addition to that, what I'm really, really hoping to see is when people are looking for that calling, looking at
Mm.
okay, maybe it's just something that pays the bills if
Yes.
I explore my passion, that zest within me to do whatever the heck that I'm really good at, that I really love, in my 5 to 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my mentality has always been, because and I've worked multiple jobs for so many years, I have the 9 to 5 and I have the 5 to 10.
That's cool. That's great.
And so that is like one of the other key pieces of advice. But again, it's different for every individual. Another thing is like starting a business, whatever that is. That is something that, and there are a lot of, and if locally, if you reach out to different business sectors,
Mhm.
different business mentorship programs. Those are things that I'd love to see one specifically designed for folks on the spectrum. Maybe that's something that later on in my career I might end up
Mhm.
doing. But that's another thing that is key. Is sort of that own entrepreneurship, that innovation, because we have so many beautiful, brilliant, innovative minds of
Yeah.
individuals who are on the spectrum who, I mean, you know what? I think a lot of these individuals were put on this earth to advance that innovation and
Yes. Yeah.
even in social innovation and technological innovation. I see some of the most innovative minds that I know on that front
Yeah.
are very openly on the spectrum. So, we have so many blessings within our community. And, I really hope that we get to see more folks who realize that untapped potential.
Absolutely. To me, the dream is in terms of the spectrum, I guess,
Mm.
for adults and possibilities is to have really solid options within the employment
Mm-hmm.
industries, and what that looks like for there's just be open to the possibilities, right? Whether it's small business, 9 to 5, 5 to 10. I love that, right? Driving your own passion into employment,
Yeah.
having those options. And then on the other side, it's interesting, and this is like in terms of your life, is is the housing piece,
Hmm.
right? Because there are some individuals that, well, everyone's going to need housing. What that
Everyone needs
looks
somewhere to
like,
live. I agree.
everyone needs somewhere to live.
Hmm.
And for individuals on the spectrum, there's a lot of different facets to this, because there are some that are going to need and do need supportive housing, right? In terms of whether that's, having somebody that is there to help care for their, daily activities of daily living because they're not able to, whether they're in some type of group
Hmm.
residence that allows for them to get out in the community and do all sorts of wonderful things, to people who have the ability to live independently, but then there's other challenges for them to find appropriate housing to do so. So the housing sector is something that we really need
It's
to look at.
near and dear to my heart. And what I've said for many, many years, and I've said this for, I think I was in my mid-teens when I said it for the
Mhm.
first time. I'd rather drink bleach than have to live in a group home. You know, that is, and I'm so lucky that I've
Yeah.
been in a position where I have been able to live independently. But, there's no such thing as too early to teach those budgeting skills, those financial literacy skills to any child.
Yeah.
I know so many neurotypical people in my generation that have like zero of those skills as well.
Sure. Yeah.
But especially folks on the spectrum, or with any disability, it's never too early to start teaching these skills: cooking, how to make basic
Yeah.
meals, how to stock a kitchen, how to
I agree.
how to budget so that you can keep the kitchen stocked and not be at all junk food.
Yeah.
Although guilty as, oh my God, if you
Yeah.
saw my kitchen right now, way too much. I eat too much pasta,
Yeah.
but I come by it honestly.
It tastes
But
so good.
right, honest, and lasagna. Oh my God, my addiction. But in all honesty, like what we really need to be doing is looking at teaching these skills at a really young age. There's
Yes.
no such thing as too young,
Yeah.
and supported independent living is
Absolutely.
really the model that I really think needs to become the status quo.
It would be incredible. And like you said, there's so many facets to this. So even within school, right? There's a lot of important things for kids to learn in school. I'm a big proponent of what we call functional academics, right?
Hmm.
It's funny, you mentioned math
Right.
was maybe not so much your thing in school, but yet when it comes to functional math and activities of daily living, you rocked it. You rocked math, right? You
Yeah.
you figured out how to make it work
Well, and I'm
to get
I'm
to where you are today.
I mean, you know what? I think poverty is a great teacher. I learned how to be very cheap from a very young age because, basically, in a nutshell, I had no choice, and
Yeah.
I've very, very miserly in my life now, and it certainly got me places.
Mhm.
But like specifically, those functional skills, and I mean I was elected actually on a mandate, to introduce home ec programs, life skill
Mm.
programs for all students, not just
Mhm.
kiddos on the spectrum, because quite frankly, if we start giving this just to kids on the spectrum, our kids on the spectrum are going to be a heck of a lot more functional than the neurotypical peer.
Here,
So these are skills that everyone
everyone,
can benefit
absolutely.
from. And I mean,
Yeah.
I know so many people. God, I have friends that, not affected by any type of disability. If they had only had that, their lives would be so much
Yeah.
better.
These are
But
real life
these
skills
are
that
real
we
life
need
skills.
to succeed.
Absolutely,
They
positively.
may need some, specialized teaching
Oh,
for individuals on
absolutely.
the spectrum, but it is something that's important and
Completely.
helps us get to that point of in adulthood, housing, employment. These are key factors. Want to go back to some of your
Hmm.
experiences within the housing sector,
Hmm.
because I think it's important for people to hear some of the stories of some of the challenges that you've seen firsthand families go through, unique challenges for housing. Can you share any stories of experiences that you've seen for individuals on the spectrum, what that might look like for them or for also the families too, right? Being able to find places that work for them that they can live in and their kids can be who they are.
Mhm. Absolutely, and
Yeah.
it's very, very, very difficult,
Yeah.
especially, and again, like so many single moms,
Yeah.
wage gap, plus having kids, plus being a single parent, plus having a child on the spectrum who's constantly being pulled out of school,
Yeah.
and whatever comes first, the chicken of the egg to make that
Sure.
happen. We have a lot of parents, moms with kids on the spectrum who end up in our shelter system, and I've had the opportunity to tour shelters
Yeah.
across our province. And like their dormitories. They imagine being a child on the spectrum, maybe with a couple siblings and a
Yeah.
parent, in bunk beds in a room that you're sharing with multiple other families. Bed bugs. Our shelters are filled with bed bugs.
Right.
That makes me itchy even just
Yeah.
thinking about that. But like
Yeah.
literally, these are the experiences, and you know what? A lot of the families that I know that have gone
Yeah.
through this, people have said to them, "Oh, well, why can't you stay at a friend or a
Mhm.
relative?" A lot of these families have, and they've been kicked out of even those type of situations because of the fact that the child is struggling with their behavior so badly that it's being disruptive. And then I've known families who have been kicked out of our shelter system because the children are being so disruptive within the shelter so badly that, like, literally, I've heard of families living in minivans while
Interesting.
trying to procure something. This is
Yeah.
not right in one of the richest countries on the face of
Yeah.
this earth. It's not right for anyone to
Yeah.
be without a place to
Of
live,
course not.
let alone
Yeah.
families with children with special needs. Like this
Yeah.
is it's an abject failure of our system, and it's something that, and this is very nonpartisan. I have people across the political spectrum that agree wholeheartedly. This is
Absolutely.
something
No,
we
this
need
is,
to
we
collaborate
need
on
to
changing.
address. I don't
Yeah.
think most people, this is eye opening, it's profound. I don't think most people know that there are families who have kids on the spectrum that are shuffling from place to place to place,
Yeah.
including homeless shelters that they can't stay in because, quote unquote, their kids are being disruptive or
Hmm.
whatnot. Where are they supposed to go? This is a huge, huge issue that we
Hmm.
need to address when it comes to
Absolutely.
housing for families and individuals on the
And
spectrum.
individuals too.
Yeah.
Like the number of individuals who are in our encampments right now in this province, many of them who may be neurodivergent themselves, or it's guaranteed many of these
Yeah.
individuals I mean, the number of homeless people we have who are sleeping rough, unhoused encampments,
Yeah.
and many of these individuals, the shelter system does not work for them. I mean, frankly, the
Yes.
shelter system
There
is
you go.
not designed to work for everyone. That's
Yeah.
for mighty certain, and we have so
Yeah.
many, that's one of the things we really need to work on, a housing for all strategy. And that needs to include a huge supportive housing piece,
Hmm.
supported independent living. And in addition to that, and this is another thing that it's interesting because part of the mandate I was elected on was to introduce healthcare focused programs in our secondary schools,
Yeah.
as well as in our adult facilities, which I also want to speak about the adult education piece a
Hmm.
little bit later, if I may. But with respect to a healthcare focus program, I would love to see something like this province wide, ideally one day, where we actually train individuals within the high school system completely for free and the skills they need to take healthcare and developmental services jobs. Because that is one thing. I mean, anyone who works in the sector knows very well there's such a labor shortage when it comes to individuals who work with individuals on the spectrum in our
Hmm.
group
Oh,
homes,
yes.
in our healthcare settings. I mean, the labor shortage, it is real.
Yeah.
These jobs just don't pay enough, and so that's something we really need
Yeah.
to work on, is trying to find a way to attract more funding so that we can secure better salaries for a lot of these workers. But in addition to that, increasing the number of individuals with the skills to work in that sector.
Hmm.
These are huge, huge, huge things. And I think with more individuals working in the sector, we're going to have a much stronger sector that is going to be able to be more supportive. And I'd love to see more individuals with lived experience working in the sector. I've actually, you know what, Sunny, over the past 3.5 years, I've actually seen it more and
That's great.
more and more of individuals working on the front lines who have that lived experience.
Hmm.
I actually have a friend who's an educational assistant who is on the spectrum, like very open, very proud about it. And I'm like, you are my gosh darn hero, because to have that lived experience and parlay
Hmm.
at the front lines, like I'm parlaying a lot of this in more upper management level on the front lines. That
Hmm.
is absolutely positively heroic. Um, if I may explain about the
Yeah.
adult education
Yeah.
piece,
Yeah.
we have so many individuals who have left our school system without a diploma.
Very good.
I'm one of
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
I went through the process of getting a GED. Uh,
Yes.
I was also, I'd done a lot of advocacy on the adult education front. So, and that's something that I would love to make a lot easier because there were quite a few barriers for me to be able
Yes.
to access that, like quite a few. But I also want to see an adult education system that actually provides special education support for the many individuals who have been failed by the system like me, or individuals who actually have gone through until they're 21 in many cases with a certificate of completion.
Hmm.
And the number of individuals that I know who have the certificate of completion, who have gone on, very smart
Hmm.
individuals, have gone on to build wonderful careers for themselves,
Hmm.
do quite well, who were not given the right to access a high school diploma. And if they were to go back to school pretty much anywhere in this province,
Yeah.
they are not entitled to the special education support that children are entitled to under the
Interesting.
Education Act.
Hmm.
Children are entitled to this under the, and this is something I've served on more special education advisory committees than anyone in Ontario's history. On three different school boards, and something in my intuition tells me post swearing, and I will be most likely asked to serve on the special education advisory committee of the
Yeah.
board I've been elected to. But
Sure.
and this is something I always try and advocate for to more or less success, is extending those services to individuals in the adult education system.
Hmm.
I mean, you know what? It's sometimes like climbing up Mount Kilimanjaro, very much like the battle that my poor mother had back in the late '90s, early 2000s, trying to get me resources. But it's something that we really need because we are, this is a human right that a lot of people
Hmm.
have been denied in this province, and it's not fair. It's not a way to build a strong economy when you have a huge fragment, a huge section of the population who has been denied that right, that foundation to success.
I always think, the right to access, for me, there's a right to access effective treatment, a right
Absolutely.
to education, supports, whatever that may be. There's two layers to it for individuals on the spectrum and their families. One is the human layer, right?
Mm,
It's the right thing to do, it's the compassionate thing to do. But there's also such a strong economic argument for all of this. Look, all the things you've discussed, housing, employment, adult education, huge, right?
mm-hmm.
You give people that opportunity, they give it back to the
The
community, the
economy.
economy, not
Yeah.
even twofold, fivefold, tenfold. I don't even know. It's a lot, right? It just makes intuitive sense on so many levels. There are tons of studies now even demonstrating the economic arguments of
Mm.
doing all of this.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's no question about it. It's a win-win, and you and your life and your journey and
Mhm.
your path really do demonstrate that.
Thank you.
What you've accomplished is remarkable.
Thank
Leading
you.
up to where you are now, school board trustee,
Mm.
is just such an incredible feat, for our I think for not just you, really for our community.
Mm.
And I also do truly hope to see more and more people represented at all different levels, so that we can have these important conversations and make meaningful change. Last question. So here you are today, right? Homeowner, publicly elected official, supported so many in the community, paid it forward. Go back to Curtis in those traumatic high school days. What would you say to him?
Wow. What a question. What a question. Honestly, I don't think there's very much I could have said to myself because I was so broken.
Mm,
I was so broken by a system that had failed me, a system that had failed my best friend who took his life, a system that had failed my mother as well. Uh, I don't know how I probably would have told myself, you won't believe what your future holds.
mm,
You, like, literally, you would not believe what your future holds because there are great things to come. Uh, Keep that chin up even on your worst day and laugh on your worst day too. If
mm.
you can laugh on your worst day, which I believe me, I somehow have. If you're able to laugh on your worst day, good things come. Good things come of it. And I feel really, really lucky to, I guess, have had that spirit, to have that loud, annoying voice that never gives up. But just really, really, keep on checking, walk the road less traveled, because you know what? The route that everyone else is taking is going to have more traffic. That road, carving that path. And, when you're unsure of something, trust your intuition and keep moving forward. Let your heart guide you, let your faith guide you, and let your morals and conscience guide you. And there are people, there are wonderful people who you will connect with on that journey. Like the number of people that I've met, the experiences that I've had. If I could have told my young self, you were gonna drive all across North America, and God, we live in a beautiful country. Gosh, I just putting that out there, and I love America as well. The fact that you're going to be an elected official, the fact that you're going to have some of the coolest connections, yourself
Yeah.
included, by the way.
Thank you.
You're gonna have some amazing, amazing connections.
Yeah.
You're going to have a career that is literally going to help make a huge impact on so many lives. You're gonna have so many fun experiences. You're gonna be able to cook so many cool types of food. You're gonna own a beautiful home that has a view of the Adirondack Mountains across the border in New York State. I mean, if I could have told that to myself, I would have been like, are you in me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you kidding me? So yeah, that's
It's
basically.
unbelievable.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your candor, your open,
Thank
honest,
you.
vulnerable, talk today. I have no doubt it will give so many
Oh.
hope, inspiration, and it's real. It's real. Your journey was real. And so I really thank you for that. And one thing I'll leave on this that so profound is that you said your village started with one, your mom, and now not only do you have a village, but you helped construct that village. And there's a lot of us. We're here as a community and we continue to grow and we're so grateful that you're part of it. Thank
Thank you.
you.
My hope is that we're going to be able to build a village that leaves no one behind, and we're going to be able to work together to build the biggest village imaginable. I am so excited to be part of that
Yeah.
change.
Me too.
Thank
Thank
you. I
you.
also invite anyone to feel free to connect with me on social
Yeah.
media. Feel free to reach out on my website, curtis.jordan.webley.com, or connect with me by email, social media. Feel free to send me a call or text. I'm always happy to connect with members of our community and any constituents who may be watching. Um, Thank you for your support in my election, and
Yay.
I'm looking forward to making a lot of change. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Curtis.
Thank
Thank you.
you.